Hello, hello. Welcome to a lunch dev session. Super excited about this one. We've been doing a lot with Eleventy lately, building out the events.lunch.dev. And today, Jacob Roman is taking us through some computed data, like a computed data exercise. And the goal of this is to be able to include some calendar events so that when you go to the site, you can, click on a calendar icon of whatever you use, whether it be like Outlook or Google Calendar or Apple ICS calendar thingies, whatever, and then just click on one of those and then get the event in your calendar, and then be here and hang out with us. So I think that's it. We're going to use computed data in 11D to do that. Jacob, take it away.
Hello. Yeah, so as Chen said, this is to add a kind of a link. I guess since it's technically already pushed up, we can kind of get an example here. What is it? Events.lunch.dev. I don't know why. No.
Events plural.
Events. That helps.
All the events.
Yeah, so we'll go to today. It hasn't gone away yet. Is these little icons, and when you click it, it just adds it to your calendar for later. So to do that, I picked up this issue on the repo. I believe this is no, it was this one. I figured I'd give it a go because I've never worked with 11T before, and I've heard a lot about it. So I figured I'd give it a go, and the way that I kind of work as a developer is definitely more of a just trial and error. So just kind of jump in and see how it works approach. And so that's what I did. And this is the npm package that we use. And basically, this just helps generate a URL to add it to the specific calendars. And kind of I wanted to showcase like my first attempt at tackling this issue. And that was, oh yeah, I was already here actually. So if you look here, I knew 11 dealt with templates, and that's how the events were set up. But I realized that we have these markdown files that have some front matter of the date, and I needed to work with this date so I can generate the URL. So having something like computed data was super helpful. At the time, I didn't know about it, but since 11D works in Node when it renders your templates, I was like, okay, so how do I tie the two together? We already had an events template, and so I went ahead and created. I found that you could have a template based. There's different formats that the 11D docs show you that you can have your templates in, and so I tried the template languages. So I tried the JavaScript one out, and basically what I ended up doing was just creating a wrapper around the currently existing template and added the calendar data. And after we created a PR for that, there was a lot of back and forth talk about what a best approach was. And after talking with Ben about computed data and taking a look at the docs and actually reading them this time around, instead of just kind of going in there willy-nilly and trying to break stuff. Where is it? Right here. It explains that at the end of the data cascade, you may want to inject data properties into your data object that are based on other data values, which is exactly what we're looking to do. And I really like the example that they gave here of a navigation approach. So let's say you have a list of blog posts, and you have a title, and you want this to be a link that you click on to use elsewhere. That's where, and they're passing it into the navigation, so you can use it in other places. So that's what we're gonna kind of do today here, and I don't think I have a test event yet because I backed out this branch, and so we're gonna actually use the fancy CLI that we have, which is this. So we'll go ahead and create a test event. And I am on Windows, so these emojis don't work. What's the name of the event? We'll just call it test event.
Oh, that's so sad. I didn't realize that those didn't work on Windows.
Yeah, we'll have to create an issue. And then we'll make this date February 2nd of 2022. EST. We'll do our typical time. And there we go. So now we have a test date to work with, and the whole reason that I'm doing that is if we fire this up, we don't want to show the calendar links. If I think it opened, oh, there it goes. We don't want to show the calendar links on past events because it just doesn't make sense to show them for past events that aren't happening. So we got our test event. And then we'll go back here, and I believe I also need to add in that the npm package, which is yarn and calendar link. Go ahead and grab that. And so kind of the approach that we're going to take now is that we're going to create I think it's just a JavaScript file. Let me take a look here. But it should live right next to our template file. Well, not our template file, but next to this JSON file here, which links to our template. And create a new file called schedule dot 11t data. Basically, with this file, we'll be able to do everything that we did in this. Where's it? This. Well, not everything, but most of the legwork for the extension. So we'll be able to grab the information from. Whoops, sorry. I know I keep switching screens very fast here. We'll be able to grab the date from the actual from the markdown file itself, and then use that to basically generate links for Google, Outlook, and all those, and then pass that data to the template to be used in the template. So we'll just go ahead. I think we'll just do Google for now, so I don't have to create a ton of links. So get this out. Oops. And then one other neat thing is, so we have if you look at the package, we have the ability to add in different, so like we can add in a URL so that people can basically click on, I think was it Discord? Yeah, it was to Discord, and then location is obviously in Discord. And then it says right here that URL is not supported in all calendar.
Uh,
So we will eventually need some sort of logic to determine that if they're to basically put it in the description, because the description can go on every single calendar. Kind of like I'm assuming everybody or most people nowadays have seen a Zoom invite, so it's kind of the same idea
sure.
there.
Does it? I'm kind of curious. Like, does the library itself not account for the libraries that don't, or the calendars that don't support the event URL?
Yeah, I don't. Let's see here. I don't think it does. Just this is the only thing it really
Okay.
says.
Do you remember in your experience, does it break or does it just not include it?
I think it doesn't include it.
Okay, cool. That seems like a fine fallback then. I mean, I guess at least for what we're doing for right now.
Yeah. So and then we can go ahead and get our data written, and then we'll do 11T. What was it? Computer. Let's see if the autocomplete doesn't know about computed. And then inside of that, what I ended up doing before is we could just go ahead and just say like Google Calendar link if we wanted here, and then basically have a function that returns the link. But I went ahead and I did one more level and just said calendar links, because we're going to do something for the past events, and we need to know if the past event is, or the current event is in the past or not. So here we can just do this, grab the data from the front matter. And because we're in Node, we can just go ahead and grab the is before function from the date library.
Was it date FNS? Is that the one we're using?
Yeah.
Cool.
And so here, which, yeah, we'll just put a return here. I mean, say is before, and then we say new date, and then date start. And that will return true or false based on if it's a current event or past, or, well, not a current event, a future or past event. And then so now we can go ahead and use add our Google link, which we'll just call Google link. And we from here we'll want to grab the title and the description.
Interesting. So if I understand correctly at this point, I'm just trying to parse what I'm seeing here. So we're creating a so 11D gives us this hook effectively where we can kind of add to its computed data using this 11D computed kind of object. So that's like a special 11D thing that we're hooking into. But then everything inside of that object is stuff that you're defining, so that is past events isn't tied into that hook specifically, but you can now use that piece of information to kind of construct the view. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
cool.
Yeah, we have the freedom to. I think it just has to be a child of the 11D computed, and I mean we can just add in all sorts of things. I don't know what
Gotcha.
else we could add in there, but um, that's the idea there,
Cool,
which
cool.
is super neat um, because like kind of like what I touched on in the beginning, that's one thing that I struggled with was like, oh, here's a template file, and just from other frameworks that I've worked with that have all templates set up. Well, I need to compute this data before it gets translated into a template, um, and that's kind of what I was looking for, and
Nice.
I missed it the first time around. So, and then so basically, we'll just pass an object with all of the data um, from our front matter. And so the start is the start time, and we have to also give it a duration, which we usually go for about an hour. And then there's a location, which is going to be pretty much the same for the rest, and then the URL for Discord. And that is pretty much it on the computed dated side. So to answer the kind of the question of, well, where does all this data uh, kind of live and where you get to access it from is either in the template itself. So I could come into the events template and go in here and start doing some stuff. But I actually went ahead and made a a partial to just include just the calendar invite
Oh, cool.
uh, to to keep things nice and separated. So I just want to get this rendered to show the data. If I can find where this lives. Actually,
Did you want to spit it out in let's see. So is this something that we can spit out inside of just the template, or does it need to be inside a schedule view specifically?
so I think it can be. So this might be something that Ben can answer, maybe not necessarily Ben, but somebody else that has more 11T knowledge. Um, with the computed data, I don't know if it's specifically for events or if I could go around the home and access the same data. That I'm not too sure.
Gotcha. Yeah, I
Um,
imagine it's probably based on the file structure. So this is inside of
yeah.
schedule, right?
Yeah,
Or the schedule subdirectory of source.
yeah.
Okay. I think my understanding is that, just kind of like schedule.json, that would only be available to the files inside of that same folder, but you can correct me if that's an incorrect assumption, Ben.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's only available for files in this folder, but rather I would say it's applied to
Ah,
every file in this folder. Maybe
Oh,
that's the mental
okay.
model here, because every markdown, 11D kind of overrides terms, and so it'll use terms in ways that are unexpected. And 11D actually defines a template as your markdown. So every markdown file is a template
mm,
because you can use like nunjucks or liquid templating languages in there. And what's in the layouts directory, what we would think of as templates, is actually layouts, right? So for every template, for every markdown file, 11T aggregates all the data that it has access to and compiles it into one big object. And that's the data cascade. That's what the data cascade is doing. Is it's aggregating data from all these different sources and applying it to your template. So it's taking all the stuff that is generated in the schedule.11ddata.js as well as the stuff that's generated in or like is specified in schedule.json, as well as the stuff that you specify in your front matter. And it's aggregating all of that into one big object that you can leverage in your templates, so in your markdown or in any layouts that are applied to your templates.
Mhm. Now,
Okay. That's really cool.
because this is like, we use this term cascade, because this is nearest to our templates in schedule, this would theoretically override other things that we're trying to use that same namespace, of like calendar link inside of the computed object.
Okay.
That's correct, but you could override it still if you were to go to the front matter for a specific markdown file and
Sure.
specifically say calendar links
That's
in
cool.
there. Yeah, so there's a whole flow to that I'm still kind of wrapping my head around, but
So if you really wanted to override one specific calendar link for an event, you could just change it in the front matter.
yep.
Very cool.
Cool.
Very cool.
All right. So these were all SVG before, so I already have this up. And since we're just doing Google, if I just go here, calendar, there we go. So we'll go ahead and save this, and I will add this to our repo so that we can use it. If I can find it. Community calendar, source, and assets. Okay, so now I think that's what I did. Oh no, I added it to. So now that we have an SVG in the partials, we can go ahead and do something like this, where we'll have a link, which will be our Google Calendar link. And then we can also do the, what is this, liquid syntax with the percent sign. And just say include partials Google Calendar.svg. That should give us our Google Calendar SVG. And inside of the link itself, that's where we can actually say calendar links. And that should render out our Google link for adding whatever event you're currently looking at to your Google Calendar.
Interesting. So now that we're on the template side, we're accessing that Google links, or sorry, calendar links property inside of our is it 11D computed object, but we don't have to actually access it through the object. We have access to that, and we just do calendar links for that property, and then we can get any nested values outside of that.
Yep.
Cool.
And then so now, since we have a partial of basically just a unordered list of, we can get, you can add Outlook and all that stuff. We can go into events here and basically use that same computed data object to conditionally render the partial of the unordered list of calendar links. So to do that,
I'm tracking.
So we can say calendar links dot is past event. Close it. And then I don't think we need a div, but just put one there for now. Oops. Not used to this percent syntax.
Percent is a little bit of an awkward key to hit. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it is.
Especially right after the curly brace. It's like on different hands and shifts and everything. It's like a
I
little
almost
dance.
feel like I need to find a way to like add a key binding to VS Code that's just like when I click this shortcut, I want you to go ahead and create the brace with percent.
Totally.
All right. And then so we end the if, and that should be everything linked up together. Cross our fingers. Maybe. Oh wait, do I have to restart the server for this? I can't remember.
I'm not sure, but when in doubt.
Yeah. No. Oh, you know what? Oh no. I was gonna say I didn't put a date, but I did. So let's just go ahead and restart. I feel like that was something that I had to do when I first attempted this.
If not, let's see. We can always look at the other events, the past events, and see if maybe there's the conditions flipped.
Oh my god. I think I actually do know this. I think in your 11D computed, I think you put is past events plural, but here you're using is past events singular.
Oh, yep.
Is that what I did? Oh, it is. Plural.
Oh, pluralizations.
Nada? Well, what did I do wrong then?
Well, okay, so
Let's see.
let's do this. So if it's in a past event, that's when you're showing the thing. So check out a past event and see if maybe the logic is just flipped.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Did I do it here? No, I don't see it. Is it another plural thing?
And you're okay. Let's see. Return. Oh, it looks like you're extracting, like you're destructuring the data property and you're renaming data start. But I think you want a date, right? You want to extract the date?
Not data?
Right, because date would be a property on the.
There we go.
Hey, there it is.
Look at that.
Obviously, that needs to be styled, but
love it.
if we click that, we have a link that generates. So we have a location. There's no description because I didn't add one. But that's where we would add like the Discord link, which we could easily do that. So it would be something like, URL plus. I wonder if that would actually work. Probably be all jumbled.
Oh, this is interesting though. Because you have description though, we could add a description to this test event, and that should flow through.
Yeah, because we don't want undefined.
Gotcha. Yep.
So yeah, we could go to open my event and then add in description. And just say this should work. Then we save that. Go back. Just refresh. Good luck. And there you go. Should work. And then we can go back here and obviously add in all the other links that are whatever we think are the most commonly used calendars. so you could add Outlook. I don't know who uses Yahoo, but there's probably somebody out there.
It's got to be somebody. Got to be somebody.
Yep. So yeah, that's pretty much computed data. I don't know if there's anything else to really show off.
That is super cool. I'd love to, if you're open to it, just kind of like go through and review some of the steps, and kind of where they apply. Because I think, as we've talked through it, there are some, I guess, concepts that you need to be aware of, and I think I'm still a little bit foggy on kind of like the data cascade and all that kind of stuff. But I think maybe reviewing it would be a good way to kind of like reinforce some of the edges of how this works.
Yeah. What did you have specific?
Yeah, so I guess just like going through the feature again, maybe starting from the, what is it, schedule.11d dot JS, just kind of talking through each of the things. We can kind of define like which part of it comes from where, like whether that would be library, 11t, and just our own stuff. And then kind of like reconnect the dots between like, where the SVG template's getting rendered, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, yeah. So obviously the calendar link and date and stuff to format the date or figure out if the event is before. Because from stuff that we've added, if this, none of this existed or we didn't need it, it would just be a simple module exports. And then you'd have to make sure that the 11-day compute, I think, is fairly key, so that it knows that it's going to in that cascade, it will overwrite the data. If kind of like we said, if calendar links existed somewhere else, it would overwrite it.
And now is the name particularly important for the, because we've named the file schedule.11ddata.js. Does that name specifically tie it into the data cascade, or can it be named something different?
That I'm not too sure about. I wonder if what I read. Let's see here. Because like in this example, they have computed data, and this one is in post.
Gotcha. So it seems like,
as an example,
it seems like maybe the name doesn't necessarily matter, but that the extension for sure matters. That 11ddata.js.
Yeah.
If I may interject,
yeah, please.
We've seen the concept of directory data files before. Specifically, like if you have a directory called schedule, and inside you create a file called schedule.json, creates a directory data file, and it does matter that the file names match up.
Okay.
The .11ddata.js files are the same way. They are also directory data files. They're just JavaScript instead of JSON. So the fact that the schedule11d.js, the fact that it has the same name as the directory does matter here.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So we're opting into this feature by using the same name as the directory. And then in our case specifically, we're using two templating languages to provide data. So that's the schedule.json and then also the schedule.11ddata.js file. And then I'm assuming the difference between those is like the JSON is just kind of like static JSON that's getting injected into each one of these, versus the value of the 11ddata.js is that we can like actually do some programming in here. It's not just like static JSON.
That's correct.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
As with anything in 11d, things are configurable. So if you decide you really don't like the .11ddata.js suffix, there is a way you can configure that in your .11d.js file. But
cool.
I mean, I don't know. I tend to be personally of the opinion that like sensible defaults from 11d, like keep them as close as possible to that way, because that makes it easier to like research later.
Yeah, easy to Google, right?
Yeah.
So
But
I have
it,
a question slash a thought, and it's not on this branch currently, but I know that when you did the contributors page, there was the underscore data. Do you know off the top of your head if something like this data file, where that overwrites in that
yeah.
hierarchy?
So actually, first of all, why don't you go ahead and pull up in your browser, search for 11D data cascade because their docs like lay out specifically the order of precedence that these things take. Um,
Ah,
broadly speaking, the global data files, that's everything that shows up in that underscore data directory. Broadly speaking, those have the weakest precedence. So they're actually, sorry, if you scroll up, Jacob, to the top, this ordered list right here lays out
oh,
the order. So at the bottom there, you have the you have this concept of, well, first of all, you have this concept of custom global data, which is a thing that you can define in the .11d.js, which I'm told is good for plugins. Um, Probably not great for sites, but great for plugins. One step above that is global data files. So that's everything that you stick in your underscore data. So that's going to have, of the content that we write, of the stuff that we do, that's going to have the weakest precedence. It's going to be the thing that gets overridden, like in just about every case. A step above that is directory data files. So that's where we have our schedule.json. That's where we have our schedule.11data.js. You could have um, directory data files, and those will override global data files. You could have, weirdly enough, and I've just been looking into this lately, you could have what are called template data files. That's a step above that, where basically for every markdown file, you create an accompanying JSON file that specifically handles, like basically it's if you wanted to outsource your front matter to a separate file, which is not really a pattern I care about, but it's a thing you could do. Um, Front matter that you define in your layouts, so not even just your templates, but like in your layouts, that'll override directory data files, and it'll override global data files. Um, Front matter that you define in your markdown files will override just about everything else. And then the final trump card is computed data. So computed data, I guess, apparently does override everything. And that's because computed data relies on, like, computed data is a way to process data that has been defined elsewhere. So it kind of has to be the last step because you
Sure.
kind of have to let 11D define all the other data. So yeah, that is
correct.
the order. Broadly speaking, it's global data is the weakest, directory data files, front matter, computed data. That's the order of precedence.
Interesting.
Cool.
So our earlier assumption, based on this order of
Yep.
precedence, was incorrect. That we wouldn't be able to kind of redefine the values in that object in front matter because this computed data phase or step happens after the front matter is interpreted.
Yep. I was
Mhm.
totally wrong about that. But yeah,
No, and that's why I'm glad that we're like finding the edges, kind of post discussion, because I feel like it's super valuable to like kind of revisit the topics and know where the edges are and where the handoffs are.
for sure.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I didn't know either, so learning along. Cool. So it seems then like, so because from what we've just learned then is that because these are an interpretation of the front matter, the layout front matter can get trumped by the the front matter inside of any of these schedule markdown files, but then this file right here, the uh what is it, schedule.11d-data.js, because it's computing those, is the last phase, and anything here is kind of the end all be all in terms of that data cascade.
Sort of. So specifically, computed data is the 11D computed property here. So the weird thing about this, again, this file that we're in, this is a directory data file, and directory data files have their own order in the precedence. So
Sure.
if you had
Yep.
defined any other properties on this export, those would have a weaker precedence than specifically the 11D computed property.
Gotcha. Okay.
So if you were to go like I don't know what would go. Is that what you're saying? Like outside of the 11D computed?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, a way that we would leverage a higher order, like computed data, then would that be to, if 11T interprets these markdown files as templates, would that be to make a specific computed property file or 11D computed file for the specific markdown file? Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, I think there's a way you can specify computed data like in the front matter itself, right? So just I guess the way I would think about it is 11D computed is its own base. I guess you can kind of set aside front matter or directory data file properties or something like that. It's a set aside form of data that processes after all the other data.
Okay.
So you could declare it basically anywhere. You could declare any other properties, any
Now,
other data.
now, Jacob, you just ran an experiment. Could you show us kind of what you ran and kind of what the result was?
Yeah. So obviously, we use the description here, and this was pulling from the front matter in our test event that says this should work. And I was curious if I updated the description within the computed data, if it would actually change, and it actually did. So
Interesting.
which just
Okay.
makes sense because that's how it's set up.
Okay. Cool.
Because like what Ben just explained about how it runs after front matter.
Yep. Yep.
So
Interesting. Okay, cool. So then from there, so you set up your data object, your 11D computed data object, and now this is shared with all of the markdown templates inside of that schedule directory. And then kind of like, what's the next step after that, where you're actually like using those? I noticed that you're using, like, obviously you're using, partials and whatnot, and you're accessing that data different ways in the template and then in the partial. So I just wanted to review that real quick.
yeah, so I think it would just be in any template file that you should be able to access this.
Mhm.
And because I'm using it here in calendar links to get this calendar links template file to display the list, and all I have to do is just the object, whatever the first the child key is, I can use it here. And then we're also doing it in events in the template file. The past event.
Super cool.
Whether or not to render that or not. And so that makes that kind of makes me curious about what the description would be in the actual file, because I changed it in this one.
Yeah, are we able to go to that view and inspect the? I guess it would be in the description meta tag, presumably.
Yeah, is that where that is? Description. Yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah, because there is a very interesting thing. There's kind of like a back and forth, right? Because you're effectively like you're starting with the markdown file, and then I think like wrapping these things around them, so you do have that data.
Yeah.
As is defined closest to the file, not so much the global, which I guess is kind of exactly what that Cascade document is saying. But it is interesting to see it play out.
Yeah. So it did change for this event.
Okay, cool.
And obviously, I would assume it would be any event in the future. So if we were to create another event, because I changed it here, all the descriptions would be whatever you put here now.
Sure.
That's okay. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Versus if we had another folder that was like blog posts or something like that, and it was in a different directory, it wouldn't get these same overrides because these are directory based computed values.
Yeah.
Huh. Data cascade. There's a lot to learn there.
Yeah. One fun thing you can do, we've talked a bit about global data files, right? Anything under that underscore data directory. You could also create an 11D computed file in your like in your underscore data, and now you have globally defined computed data, which is also cool. So you could apply this to like apply what we're doing here, which, as we've just mentioned, only covers everything inside the schedule directory. You could apply it like inside like underscore data folder, and it would apply to every markdown template in the 11T project.
Interesting. Cool. Well, this is awesome. And Jacob, I really want to thank you like for taking the time to kind of, as you said, back this out so we could like rebuild the feature from scratch for the benefit of anyone who wasn't involved in those pull requests. So I know that this actually required some additional effort. So I really want to thank you for taking that time.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. I guess before we wrap up, is there anything that like anyone wanted to say on this? Anything that we kind of like learned or like whatnot, or just close it up, on with the rest of our day?
I was finally meaning to see the JavaScript side of all of this, and so finally, after like forever, I finally got a quick introduction to it. So appreciate it.
Yeah. Alex types, I learned the power of friendship. Rainbow and stellar emoji. That's good. All right. Well, hey, this is great. Again, Jacob, thank you so much for leading us through this effort, and again, backing out so that we could all learn about it together. Ben, thanks for your knowledge around 11T and directing us to the right places and kind of fleshing out some of the right assumptions, so that we can kind of do this in the future for other stuff that we build on this site. Again, if you wanted to get involved in this project, we have it up on GitHub. We do a bunch of events. The next one is going to be on Redwood. Anthony, AJC Web Dev, is going to lead us through that. I think specifically Storybook. So if you want to hit us up on Discord, it's events.lunch.dev/Discord. It gets you into the Discord for events like this. And we don't have a fancy YouTube link yet, but eventually, after we get 100 people, I think we'll get one of those as well. So thanks so much for being here, and thanks Jacob and Ben for your contributions today, and looking forward to seeing you later this week. Peace.